Hello, Ryan here, aka Mac, and welcome. In this video, I go through the roadmap and check out all of the ships that are listed. As always, a huge thank you to all of my patrons and channel members, in particular to Andre Marius for rejoining my YouTube. Thank you guys so much for the support. So the new roadmap progress tracker has quite a few new ship additions, which I was not really expecting. I have briefly mentioned some of the ships in a previous video, but today I wanted to dedicate a full video highlighting all of these ships that are slated to be worked on in 2021. Now, as always, it isn't a certainty that these ships will make it into the PU this year, but more of a plan at this time on what is prioritized. Things can and most likely will change, so do bear that in mind. But with that said, let us take a look. So there's a few ships that are set to acquire gold standard. Now what this means is to polish, optimize and implement all the features that are planned for ships to make them finished and good for release. So these features will likely include physical components, physical damage, age and degradation, interactable dashboards with your hand movements associated, modularity if appropriate, the final UI with the manufacturer specific designs, and probably quite a few more that I have forgotten. Now the ships slated to reach gold standard first are all heavily related to Squadron 42, which is obviously why they were prioritized for this treatment. And those ships are the Aegis Gladius, the Aegis Retaliator, the Anvil Hornet F7A Mark 1 and 2, and the Argo MPUV, which is a vehicle used by the Idris capital ship to ferry passengers or cargo around. Now each ship requires a number of various sprints, with the first being a 4-week art sprint for the Gladius and the Retaliator, an 8-week art sprint for the Argo, and then another sprint from art for the Retaliator lasting 12 weeks, which is possibly for the modular rooms. Finally, the two Hornets require a 22-week sprint from art as well. Now I would expect we will see the Gladius in the PU first, looking tip-top, as this ship is usually the forerunner for the most up-to-date tech due to its heavy involvement in Squadron. But there were a few others also slated to become gold standard that, although they won't affect the players in the PU for some time, it's probably still worth mentioning. The Vanduul fleet has a 4-week sprint beginning in February for the tech content team, which is to bring the various ships of the Vanduul to the gold standard. Whether we will get to see these before Squadron 42 releases, I don't know. Will we see them in Arena Commander? Probably not, I don't think so. But the gold standard also applies to the Anvil F8 Lightning, which has a 12-week art sprint set for the beginning of February, and I pretty much don't think we will get access to this before Squadron anyway, so we will have to wait to see that one. So that is all the gold standard ships that we know of so far, so we'll move on to the vehicles in development, and a vehicle that we have only just heard is now in active development is the Tumbril Nova Tonk. We saw a white box pass on Inside Star Citizen a few weeks ago, and on the progress tracker it is set for a 5-week sprint from both the engineering and design beginning in April next year, so there is a potential for a Q2 release, but there could be other work to be done by other teams in the second half of the year that we just don't see yet because we don't have all the teams on the progress tracker. The Nova Tonk is a main battle tank. It is 16 meters in length, 5 meters tall, and has 2 size 2 Clausen Werner CF227 Panther energy repeaters, 1 size 4 ballistic cannon, and a Firebug energy missile launcher. Now the Tonk is going to be a very fun vehicle to try out, and I'm very much looking forward to fighting alongside it, more so than taking it on head to head. Next up we have the Constellation Taurus. This is the hauling and final variant of the Constellation lineup, and it's set for a 3-week design sprint starting towards the end of April, so potentially again a Q2 release, but as mentioned before, we will need to see if there is any more work required. So one ship that has been teased every now and again is the Redeemer. Now last we heard, which was 2 weeks ago, this ship was progressing through the early stages of the white box phase, and that it uses the modular system similar to the Vanguard series. Now we saw the living areas and the remote turret stations, and I do wonder if it'll have modular abilities with it using the same tech as the Vanguard. That would be pretty exciting. Now the Redeemer is currently set for a 28-week sprint from both art and design, beginning in January, and these tasks are all to get the Redeemer implemented into the PU, so chances are good for a Q3 2021 release around the end of September. My fingers are firmly crossed for that one. So one fan favourite, which was a nice surprise to see on the roadmap, was the RSI Polaris. Now this is a nimble Corvette capital class ship Full with turrets and torpedoes, it even has the ability to maintain a small fighter ship as well. Now, although the ship is slated to have a 23-week sprint from art and design in 2021, the sprint won't be kicking off until the end of July. So if we see the Polaris this year, it'll not likely be until the end of December, so Q4. That said, it is just as likely to be released in 2022, but hopefully we get it this year. Talking of capital ships, next up we have a pair of anti-capital ship heavy fighters with the Crusader Industries Ares Ion and Inferno. Now these are single-seater purpose-built anti-capital ship fighters, each with a bespoke size 7 single weapon, the Ion being the energy option and the Inferno the ballistic variant. With the release of the Star Runner, I think people are really taken by Crusader's aesthetic, and this pair of capital ship fighters from Crusader will be a very welcome addition, especially as now we are all fighting the Idris in 312. They're both set for a 26-week duration sprint from art and other sprints from design and tech content. The work is set to begin in the second half of March and finish around the beginning of September, so let us hope for a Q3 release. So the MISC Hull A and B are next on the list. Again, it is a very pleasant surprise to see these two on the progress tracker, as it was still kind of unconfirmed as to whether we would just get the Hull C and then have to wait for the rest of the Hull lineup. But the MISC Hull series are dedicated cargo hauling thoroughbreds. These are going to make up the bread and butter of the trade lanes, and although the Hull C is not present on the roadmap as such, but my guess is that it is hidden under one of the many unannounced cards. More on those later. The Hull A has a couple of sprints from art and design beginning at the end of June and lasting 29 weeks all the way up until the end of December. And the Hull B having a couple of separate cards. The first is a 12-week art sprint starting in mid-May and finishing in the end of June. And the second card being another art sprint, this time starting mid-June and lasting 29 weeks until the end of December alongside the Hull A. So there is a potential for both the Hull A and B coming in December 2021, but it could of course equally be 2022. Meanwhile, I do have high hopes that we will see the Hull C before them both, so let us wait and see. So the final officially announced ships on the progress tracker are the Hercules lineup. Now these are three very exciting ships from Crusader. The C2 is your civilian hauling variant, the M2 a military hauling variant, and the A2 is a huge gunship to rain fire upon those below. Now there are a few cards revolving around these three ships, and we know that the C2 and the M2 are present on the current Alpha 313 roadmap, slated to release in the first quarter of 2021, so at the end of March. For these two ships, we have the first sprint for the C2 involving a 9-week tech content sprint beginning in January and lasting until early March, and a 10-week design sprint for January until the end of March. Now there is also a 3-week design sprint for the C2 starting mid-April and ending early May, so my thoughts are the C2 and the M2 are more likely going to be a 313.x patch, so after the initial release of 313, but still within that branch. The M2 has a similar lineup of sprints with a 10-week art and design sprint lasting the full first quarter, a 2-week tech content sprint between February and March, and then the same 3-week sprint in mid-April. The A2, however, is not on the 313 release view, and the only difference in development for the A2 is it's receiving a final 5-week design pass late July to the end of August. Personally, I am very excited to get these ships in game, as they all look superb, and I reckon they're going to be quite useful as well. Now there are currently 16 unannounced cards on the progress tracker under many various teams. We have vehicle concept art, EU vehicle content, US vehicle content, vehicle experience, vehicle feature and vehicle tech teams, with 5 of these unannounced cards in the concept section alone. So potentially 5 new or older ships requiring a new concept pass, like what we've heard for the Banu Merchantman. Now when it says unannounced, this could mean that they've never been mentioned in the past, or they could just mean we are yet to announce what this card hides. So they could equally be ships we know of, but have yet to be announced as in development. Also in these sections, not every unannounced card is a new ship. For feature, tech and experience teams particularly, it will most likely not be referring to actually ships, more like content to be applied to the ships. But some ships that I do expect are potentially hiding in here are the Hull C, the Vulture, the Banu Merchantman, the Corsair and the Nautilus. Now I mention the Nautilus purely because on the progress tracker we have a card titled Space Mines and Bombs, which mention in certain ships releasing space mines in a coordinated fashion. So I can only assume it'll be using the Nautilus, as that is currently the only mine laying ship that we know of. The other ships I mention here I choose because these are ships that we have either heard updates on or have been seen on previous roadmaps over the years and are literally my best guess. Do let me know if you expect to see other ships though. But that is the rundown of all of the ships currently listed on the 2021 roadmap. Quite a lot in fact, and I do expect more to come, as well as many more that we haven't seen yet, the 400i being one perhaps. I will be doing a follow-up video to this one which will look into the upcoming ship tech and features, so everything slated for ships like modularity and wear and tear and so on. So be sure to subscribe if that is of interest to you, and if you want to be notified when my videos go live, be sure to tick that little bell in the top corner. If you can do the channel a big favour and hit that like button, I would really appreciate it. And if you do want to talk more about Star Citizen, the ships, the roadmap, or anything, you are all more than welcome over on twitch.tv/supermacbrothers The link is in the description below. Again, a big thank you to my patrons and channel members who allow me to do this kind of videos. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.